cloud so it'll be easier to share.
Good evening. My name is Ed Oberholtzer. I'm the resident priest and guiding teacher of the Joseph Priestley Zen Sangha in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. We're part of the Empty Moon Zen group. If we're to believe the composer Claude Debussy, then music is the silence between the notes. An observation echoed by the man who has become known as the Prince of Silence, Miles Davis, who used to advise young musicians, don't play what's there, play what's not there. And so here in this early evening, the sun having just set behind the hills to my west, the river valley fog still wrapped around the trees outside my window, let us remember that we're given the greatest of gifts, the silence into which our day will end, the silence with which we sit, the silence that we are. What, after all, is in Debussy's words but that the music, the 10,000 things, those 10,000 notes emerge from silence, out of emptiness, out of the boundlessness between the two chords on a sheet of music paper, between two trees on the edge of the field out back. Play what's not there, and the 100 grasses flourish. Keats knew this, and he wrote, "Heard melodies are sweet, but those unheard are sweeter, therefore ye soft pipes play on. Not to the sensual ear, but more endeared. Pipe to the spirit's ditties of no tone." Those unheard melodies, the evening sky darkening with the coming night, humming the music of the spheres, the Copernicus thought the planets produced as they moved in their orbits. That silence, our silence, sitting here together in the night's darkness, hearing the Dharma sung to us in those ditties of no tone. Here in the Blue Cliff record, another unheard melody is sung. The Emperor Wu of Liang, that well-meaning but often clueless monarch, asked the Mahasattva Fu to lecture on the Diamond Sutra. Fu slammed the lectern down and walked off. The emperor was astounded. "Do you understand?" asked his chief minister, Che. A wise man often called upon to point out the obvious. "I do not," replied the emperor. "Mahasattva Fu has expounded the sutra," said Che. There in that space, in that silence between lifting and slamming down the lectern, there, just there, the whole of the Dharma, the whole of the Diamond Sutra, the music emerging from the silence between the notes on the page, playing what was not there. A flickering lamp, a phantom, and a dream. The Diamond Sutra, sung by that bird on the wire, the bird that doesn't sing the Diamond Sutra and so sings the Diamond Sutra. The lecturer who doesn't speak on the Diamond Sutra and so speaks on the Diamond Sutra. The physicist who doesn't speak of space-time and so speaks of space-time. There is a story, no doubt apocryphal, a story that, if it isn't true, perhaps should be. A story that has a young elementary school student in the early 1950s find that the greatest scientist of the 20th century lived in her town in central New Jersey. She wrote to Albert Einstein, asking him to speak at her school in Princeton. Silence. She wrote again, still silence. She wrote again, and finally, no doubt worn down by the requests, he agreed to come. That morning, the students gathered in assembly. The principal stood at the lectern and introduced the great man. Einstein walked to the center of the stage, looked down at his notes, looked up at the crowd, looked back down at his notes, looked back up again, and said quietly, "I find I have nothing to say." He turned and walked away. The principal was astonished. And in that nothing, in that silence, the spinning galaxies, the curvature of all space-time, all waiting for someone in the audience to play what wasn't there. And the physicist doesn't speak of relativity, and so speaks of relativity. John Cage, yet another composer and student of D.T. Suzuki, heard through silence and saw the myriad things come forth from that emptiness between the notes. Cage found that the psychology department at Harvard University had a sensory deprivation tank, and wanting desperately to experience at long last total silence, total emptiness, he pulled strings and found himself floating in body temperature water in a room totally dark and completely soundproofed, only to find that the sound of his own blood rushing through his veins, of his own heartbeat, of the air filling and leaving his own lungs, all this sound couldn't be escaped. The Bodhisattva Manjushri had a word or two to say about this in another case, case 84 from the Blue Cliff record. Vimalakita asked Manjushri, "What is the Bodhisattva gate to the Dharma of not to?" Manjushri said, "My idea is this. In all phenomena, there are no words, no explanations, no presentations, no consciousness. There is freedom from all questions and answers. That is the gate of the Dharma of not to." Now, Suedo, the compiler of and commentator on the Blue Cliff record, asked, "What will Vimalakita say?" and followed it with, "I know all about that." And out of this silence, what will he say? Cage gave a hint in his spoken piece, the lecture on nothing. What we require is silence, but what silence requires is that I go on talking. The Dharma of not to. There are no words, and therefore there are words. Words emerging from silence, music sounding forth from the empty space between the notes. And more to the point, in perhaps his most infamous work, now known as 4 minutes and 33 seconds, a piece consisting of nothing but rests in each of its 3 movements, just rests. John Cage had it performed first in an auditorium in Woodstock, New York. The windows opened to let in the breezes of a summer afternoon. The silence of the performance filled with the sounds of shuffling feet, of exasperated sighs, of coughs and sneezes, of people angrily pushing their seats back and stalking off for the exits. And through those open windows of that hall, bird songs, wind rustling the leaves of the trees, the laughter of a passing pedestrian outside, the sound of a beating heart, music from the silence between the notes, the early evening quiet, the sound of a bell. Thank you.